Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today on this dark day, as it gets dark now at like 4:30, and a dark day was Saturday as well. We'll talk about that. But here is Logan Stump.
Howdy. How's everybody
How
doing?
are you?
Hey, living the dream. How you doing?
I'm doing. We're getting there. We are getting there. Saturday was rough. Sunday was a little better. Today has been a little better. So that's been fun. I just published the video for anybody that wants to watch that of my time at Subaru Park for the MLS watch party. So for MLS Cup watch party. Fun experience. Really top moment in Philadelphia Union fandom for a lot of people that were there because it was really full. I may not look it on my video because they didn't put nobody wanted to sit on the other side of the stadium because it'd be a harder view of the screen. So it was usually like, if you're looking at my background here, everybody was sitting on the side that is like closest to the camera here.
Yeah.
Right. And then all on the field level. So that field was full. And then this whole side here was completely full too. So it was quite a bit of people there. And it was a beautiful day, 75 degrees in November. So we didn't have to worry about like rain or like, the cold making people not want to show up. We got quite a good turnout there. And I got there early, which is usually a problem going up to Chester at times. 95 is usually busy, even on Saturdays. But it took us like an hour to get up there, which is like the fastest I've ever gotten there. And it was pretty good. We'll talk about the game here in a second because I have lots to say, and I'm sure Logan has quite a bit to say here too. But just before we do, just some little things. The transfer window opened up, the trading window that always happens for an hour during the day after MLS Cup. These nice, unique MLS things. Cameron Dunbar from the Galaxy gets traded to Minnesota. He's like a 19-year-old forward, 20-year-old, sorry. He's going to be joining them as a homegrown player in exchange for a third-round pick in the 2023 MLS Super Draft. So we'll see what that does for Minnesota. Doesn't really feel like a Heath player to me. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. But they also got GAM. LA received $75K of conditional GAM. That's if he meets certain performances. Minnesota traded to St. Louis Aziel Jackson, and that is for up to $225K in GAM. So again, performance measure there. He was a MLS Next Pro Best 11 midfielder for Minnesota United. So I'm not really sure what to make of that. These are kind of a lot of depth moves. St. Louis also picked up Jared Stroud from from Austin. Austin received $100K in GAM. And Stroud is reuniting with head coach Bradley Carnell, who is coaching for St. Louis as they work together at the Red Bulls. So he's kind of going to somewhere that is familiar to him. So that's good for Jared Stroud. And then FC Dallas signed Sebastian Lletget to a long-term deal. A new 3-year contract for Sebastian Lletget at FC Dallas.
It's pretty legit.
Yeah. Well, we also had so the players are starting to get their, what's it called? The players for the U.S. men's national team today, we're starting to get notified. And the official announcement is like 5 p.m. on Wednesday. So we'll probably have an episode Wednesday where we'll talk about that. But some of the stuff is actually leaking out. Let me see if I can find that. I had retweeted some of this stuff, but it was leaked out by the players. Are starting to tell people. Okay, they told Nico and Michelle from Univision. 4 center backs are going to be in there, and they are Walker Zimmerman, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Aaron Long, and Tim Ream. Tim Ream. We've been asking for it, and I'm sure some people are going to somehow turn that into a negative. But Tim Ream is going to make the squad, which is great. He's been playing so well for Fulham. And when you're down, it seems like Chris Richards is not going to be ready then at that point, since he's not on the list. You need somebody that's a little bit more experienced, somebody that has played it before and is playing at a Premier League level right now. So good for Tim. That's really all that leaked, I think, so far, is the center backs. So we'll keep an eye on
important stuff, though.
That's one of the questions we had. The forward is going to be the next one that'll be. I really wonder how that'll leak. But so far, can't really complain too much. I know people are going to complain about Aaron Long, but I think Cameron Carter-Vickers getting called in and Tim Ream getting called in with Walker Zimmerman, that's all good news, I think, to my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think those two were the names that were thrown out there as possible replacements for center backs that we had in the past. So, I mean, I know those are both. Vickers has played really well, and Tim Ream has been phenomenal. So, I think, it's not ideal. I think you would like to have Miles, obviously, and I still think there was some moments where I think Johnny Anthony Brooks helps on this roster, but I think that was gone once the minute the minute that Johnny Anthony Brooks is left out of the team for Greg. I think that was ultimately just the end of him. Whoa, we're on a ride with Jordan. Welcome to the Magic Carpet Ride with Jordan weekend.
All right, I don't know what exactly. Well, I saw a spider on my wall, so I had to kill it, and then I guess it knocked my camera a little bit. So
it's normal now, though.
Yeah. All right, there we go. I shrunk a little bit though. I don't know what happened there. Okay, but yeah. So lots of moves going on here. We'll have full roster stuff on the 9th. And then I think next Monday, we're going to be doing our World Cup preview because we'll be like a week away from the World Cup. So we'll have that coming for you as well soon. So lots of good stuff coming on. We also have the expansion draft on the 9th. Is that right? No, the 9th. No. Because the 9th is the roster. When is the expansion draft? It's soon, right? Is it also the 9th? Or the 11th?
MLS is. Oh, don't give me that. It's giving me the number that it wants.
November 11th.
Friday.
Yeah. So we'll probably talk about that Monday, and I can just break that into its own 30-minute thing, and then we can talk World Cup or whatever. Yeah, expansion draft is November 11th, 2022. You can watch it on MLSsoccer.com. The deadline for clubs to exercise options on players are November 14th. The opening of free agency starts November 16th, and the super draft is December 21st of 2022. So, between that time, we're going to have the World Cup happen. So, lots of stuff going on here. It should be fun. But we got one more game to talk about for MLS, and that is MLS Cup 2022. Hosted it in LA. Was it one of the best MLS Cups of all time or the best? Lots of people saying the best. I take a little issue with that, I guess. But it was so electric being in Subaru Park with all the Union fans and got to see friend of the show, Todd, from the Free Kick, and got to see our friend Rich, former roommate, Rich. It was great. That was all the build up to it. And it was cool walking in and like you got to walk through the gate and like immediately onto the field and then just go walk and find your seat. Like that was really, really cool. And I have never been on the field of Subaru Park, so that was a lot of fun. And then we went and sat down. We got like this seat where I was like sitting like this and then having to just look a little bit up to my left for the screen, but they were like nice padded seats, like because they were right near the benches. So it was some really good, like probably very expensive seats. It was like the first row. We were sitting in like the second row of like field level. So that was really cool. But what wasn't really cool for me and the rest of Subaru Park is that the Union falls short against LAFC in penalties. This was, I saw some people saying like a very cagey affair in the first half, and I guess I get that, but I don't know. I was hanging on, I guess because it was my team. I was really hanging on every pass of the ball. I didn't see it as being that low quality of a first half like some people did. But second half really kicked into gear. So, halftime, Union go down 1-0. They come out, and I told my wife before it started the second half, I said we need an early goal in the second half and then a late winner. And I was almost right about both of those. But I was right about the I guess it's still early, right? It was like 15 minutes and 10 minutes into the second half that we scored to equalize it, and it was Gazdag who did that, and the place erupted. They played the Dupe song, and everybody's bouncing. It was really cool. And then 83rd minute, when Logan's texting me, and he says there's going to be a game winner in like the 83rd minute, and then LAFC scored, and I was like, well, you're right.
Unfortunately, you were correct.
But he wasn't correct, because then Jack Elliott is going to equalize late in the second half, like 86 minutes? It was like 2 minutes later. And the place was bumping again. It was absolutely crazy. And that was the moment, Logan, when we went down 2-1, that I had stopped believing. For people that don't know, I've been talking about it on this show. Last week, I predicted 2-1 win. I actually woke up on Saturday and had to make an MLS Cup winning graphic for LAFC because I hadn't done so yet. And I was thinking about not doing it because I was thinking, we got this. I don't know. It wasn't like cockiness. It was like something trying to tell me that you're going to win, like almost like divine intervention, which can sound cocky, I guess. But I really just felt it was their year this year. So I was like, I'll make one as a safety net. I'm not going to go all out like I did for the Union one. Union one, I have like 5 players on it. Looks fantastic. Looks awesome. And then the LA one, I got Carlos Vela on it. It's like all I did. I was like, boom, we're done.
It's shiny though.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun trying to quickly get that together and then heading up to the stadium. And so then, I don't know, I felt so very confident when we went down in the 83rd minute. I was like, geez, that's it. We don't have enough time to come back. And everybody's like standing and just like silent. And I just like slunk down in my seat and I just like held my head in my hands. And I was like, that's it. And then like literally as I'm like, they're playing and they're like about to take this free kick. And I'm just like staring like, what's the point? It goes into the back of the net. And I was like, oh my God. And everybody loses their mind. And we go into extra time. And I told everybody, so we need to win this in extra time, because especially when Crepeau got injured and took out Corey Burke, when you see McCarthy on the bench, and for some people, and even newer Union fans who may not have any idea who McCarthy is, he had a legendary run in the 2015 Open Cup and did very well in penalties in a game or two. That he kind of got blocked by Andre Blake. Obviously, Blake got picked in like 2014, but he was like our cup goalkeeper for that period. And some people were like asking for him to start over Blake at times because he was just being like lights out. And you see that and you're like, okay, he's against his former team. He's really good at penalties. I don't like this. We have to win this outright. And I thought we did. 124th minute, Jack Elliott, who had him for a brace, is going to score a goal that makes us lose our mind. I hug Rich. I turn and hug my wife. And part of me is nagging at me saying, it's not over yet. And I'm like seeing the shirt and the hat that I'm going to buy. And I'm like seeing all this stuff in my mind, you know? And then literally they need a minute and a half to hold on. And Gareth Bale jumps up and heads it in. And then we go penalties, and oh my God, that was a disaster. That was a disaster because it was Blake saves one and you have hope. And then literally it all goes downhill like in a flaming ball at that point when Gazdag slips, puts it over the bar, and then McCarthy makes 2 saves, and you don't even convert one. And I told Rich, Blake needs to make 2 saves. He only made 1. Obviously, he didn't have a lot of chances. He only had like 3 that he faced. Wasn't good. But yeah, so that was kind of the thing. And one of the things that I was thinking about during all of this is the differences in the bench. When you can bring in Gareth Bale, fresh legs and like stoppage time, extra time, and the Union are having to bring on Donovan, which a lot of people were confused about because like Quinn Sullivan may have been the better option. Donovan doesn't play as much. I don't know. Look, that wasn't going to change much anyway, but it was just kind of one of those moments where you're like, we're kind of out of our league in that sense, right? Like, if LA had lost, it would have been a disaster. They were at home. They actually gave up more possession than they usually do. And they had Gareth Bale on their bench that they brought in, fresh legs. And if he hadn't scored, I think, and the Union win 3-2, I think, I don't know. I don't know what would be the big news story. Part of me thinks the news story would be how underachieving that LAFC squad was with, you know, they brought in Bale and Chiellini just to win MLS Cup. So I really wonder how it would have been portrayed, Logan, if they had lost. Because now it's like, they're like, it's like a movie. It's a, you know what? And I haven't even been able to freaking watch any of the trophy celebrations. They turned it off as soon as the ball hit the back of the net for that last penalty. The Union shut that TV down. They're like, boom, it's done. We're not watching this. But as I'm going through the gift shop at the end, they have it on the TV and they're blaring it through the speakers. And I had to leave the store early. I could not be near it. And it was just as a dagger, so fresh, a fresh wound at that point, and rubbing salt into it. But do you think the bigger news if the Union had won would have been the Union, or would it have been LAFC losing that game?
I mean, I think with any sport, it's sad but true that the big markets are going to get more of the attention and why they screwed it up. You had home field advantage. You had Gareth Bale. You had Chiellini. I think you have a coach that is going to get questioned quite a bit just because he's a younger coach that hasn't had a lot of experience. And then I think you're going to get into the greatness of the Union. I mean, think about it, Jordan. What has been the headline throughout the year? It's not been the Philadelphia Union, who've had a historic run. And had that been in Subaru Park, I think we'd be talking about a different story. And unfortunately, because MLS, I think, is going to have a really hard time filling stadiums at a neutral site for 2 teams, I think that's just not an option right now because the sport's just not big enough to do a neutral site, which really stinks because I like the one sport that I really like that I think has the most unfair, or that has the most fair advantage as far as both teams are concerned, is the Super Bowl, because they can play in different stadiums. But I think ultimately with this, if this would have happened, you were going to get, is Carlos Vela done? Is Gareth Bale leaving? Is Gareth Bale going to then perform well in the World Cup because he didn't play much with LAFC? What does that story and narrative start to turn into? It starts to turn into that. Whereas the Union, it would have been like, wow, it was a great run, historic. They had one of the best goalkeepers. Congratulations. They get there first. But it just doesn't seem to be a draw because I don't know. And Philadelphia's fans, I mean, they're so passionate. And I think what's been really cool is kind of following it with also the Phillies losing. It's the first time, I think, in the history of sports that both teams have lost their final and gotten knocked out of the final
Well,
or
that is
exited
such a
championship.
bogus stat, and I'm not
It
a
really
Phillies
is. It
fan,
is.
but it's not. It's such a bogus
Yeah.
stat because what sport
Right.
possibly would end on the same time of each other? Like
I
usually,
think Stanley
even
Cup and NBA are the only ones.
yeah, but I mean, like even then, usually like
Right. No, I get you.
MLB,
Yeah.
like MLS is usually in November,
Mhm.
right? Like I mean December. Like we usually wouldn't be done for another month.
Right.
But because of the World Cup, they had to end it earlier. That's the only reason they even overlooked why they even overlapped like that. So I saw people saying that, and I was like, that is like such a weird thing to try to like grasp. And then, of course, now MLS is major, right? Before they would never include that, but because it was when Philadelphia would lose both, they included it as a major sport, which I thought was funny. But yeah, I don't know. I think the thing that really drove me nuts the most, and this is something I was on Todd's, the Free Kicks Twitter Spaces on Thursday, and he was asking people on there for the keys to the game. He had mentioned the game earlier this year, and I think I then mentioned the game from 2020 before the world shut down, and I said a key would be to hold the lead if you have it, right? Because if you look at the history of like the one earlier this year, we talked about it last week too, right? When we were going between the history of the two, I said, oh, wow, Union had leads in both of these and blew these games. And so that was my key to the game is if you get a lead, you cannot let them back into it. Now, of course, there's only so much you can do when like you have Gareth Bale winning a header over Elliott. Elliott been playing the whole game, tired, and you have Bale fresh legs who's 6'1", so he's not even like that much of a disadvantage against Elliott. And he just makes a good jump. And he's a world-class player. He comes from Real Madrid. He has played for Tottenham. He has won Champions Leagues. He has won big Champions League matches for Real Madrid. This is nothing for him. So when you have that, it's like, of course, they should win, and they should have, and they did. But that that moment, those 5 minutes when we had the lead, it was like you're dreaming, and every time they're booting the ball away, you're like, that's what you need to do, just boot it away, get set. And we didn't do that enough. And one of the players that I thought had just a really bad match was somebody that's beloved in Philadelphia, but for me is not one of my favorite players on the Union. And it's because I feel like this happens a lot with him. It was Jose Martinez, El Brujo, who gives the ball away in the build up to that first goal and then fouls the player that creates the free kick. It was sloppy. There's so many giveaways he had, just like really bad passes, and bad tackles and stuff that I was really, as I'm watching him up there, I was like, and this is going to be probably blasphemous for other Union fans, I just can't wait till he's gone, because I feel like there's been, I don't know, I just feel like I can't exactly point to other games because I don't have that type of memory, but I know in my mind there's been other games he has completely led up, like did the same thing, gave the ball away and then has to foul to try to stop them, creates a free kick, which then scores. And the one thing that should have been one of my keys to the game, but I didn't really think about it, is set pieces, because LAFC has scored most of their playoff goals off set pieces this year. And what do you not want to do? Give them a set piece right outside the box. And we did that twice, and I believe 2 of them ended up as goals. Definitely the first one was. I can't even remember the second goal at this time. It sounds bad. I just can't. I don't even remember the goal that they scored second. I know all of the Union's goals. I can't. I've not rewatched any of LA's part in this game. But
Well, Maria's goal, it would have been Which one was the really funky like free kick? That was the Unions, wasn't it? That was really like a weird like free kick that hit off. Yeah, it was off
Yeah,
of.
that was
Yeah.
Elliott's.
Oh no, Mario's goals was the header in like down towards the 3-2-5-2
Yeah, was it a
whatever
corner?
it was. Yeah, it was a corner. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, you're like giving up, free kicks in dangerous position.
Right. Oh, it's all
And that's-
stoppage. It's all from stoppage. Like I don't think LAFC didn't score a goal in any kind of transition. I think it was all set. Right.
Well, yeah, because even the one that they equalized on Bale
Right.
is a throw-in.
Right.
And a throw-in that Paxton kind of made a weird jump on.
Mhm.
If people are interested, watch Kevin Kincaid's breakdown of this on Twitter. He did this great breakdown of where it kind of went wrong. I know some people were blaming Elliott, but really there's just like he scored 2 goals too. I mean, what are you going to do? He's going up against Gareth Bale. He was a 4th-round MLS Super Draft pick, Jack Elliott. And he's one of the most underrated. We were just talking about it on the Twitter spaces too. He's one of the most underrated defenders in the league somehow still. Glesnes and Wagner get all of the credit for this Union backline, and it's BS. I think Elliott's the better defender over Glesnes as well, but he doesn't get enough love.
And they'll talk about Bizo too, who joins the attack.
Yeah,
really
he had a
well.
great game.
He really did. Yeah,
he blew it last year, right? That he was one of the ones that gave up that goal in NYCFC, and this year, this postseason, he played phenomenal. So what a rebound! And what we're looking at though is he might be sold. We know now Paxton Aronson is getting sold to Frankfurt, and we now have I would think Kai Wagner getting sold. Maybe El Brujo, but I doubt it. He's like 31, I think. So I don't know if he'd be going overseas. So it's going to be a very different Union team going forward. And I think that's my biggest thing is not how it would have made me feel, Logan. But the sad part is with the big changes coming through, if this generation of Union players, and what I mean by that is like if this window with the curtain being open and if it's, Jim Curtin's run here with these type of players and this squad, if all they get is that weird 2020 season supporter shield, it's a travesty because this team has been so much better than that. And they've been so consistent and more dominant than just ending up with the one supporter shield. It will be very, very sad if that's all they end up with. And it's a real possibility. You never know when you're going to get back to the final. And we've had such this like progressive build under Curtin of, okay, 2014 Open Cup, 2015 Open Cup, 2018 Open Cup, 2019 winning our first playoff game, to 2020 getting the supporter shield, 2021 getting to the Eastern Conference final, 2022 getting to the MLS Cup final. It usually doesn't work that way. So it'll be kind of interesting. The next step is literally winning it. That's all you can do at this point. That's the next step you can take is that. So it's tough to get back there. And for people that say the regular season doesn't matter, it's completely wrong. If the Union don't lose to Charlotte 4-0, they just get a draw that game. They host MLS Cup, and it's a completely different result, I feel. So that's kind of the frustrating thing for it is when people try to like say it doesn't matter. And when we don't know what the playoff system is going to be like next year, Don Garber kind of shied away from the report of the World Cup style one, which is good. And we're apparently getting maybe San Diego before Vegas as an expansion team. That's something we'll talk more about probably in the off season. But
I mean, if you look at it this year, and people are always going to bash the playoff system, and it's not perfect, and neither is the sprint to the end and the top team gets the trophy. I don't think either system. I think they all have their flaws. The biggest thing too, though, if you look at this year, Jordan, not one MLS team lost on the road. The home team won every single time this playoffs. It's the first time I think in history that has happened. So
it's interesting.
I felt like going into it, and I think part of me was rooting for it because I wanted you to be happy, but I felt that it was LAFC's game to lose.
Yeah.
But that being said, I thought the Union I don't think any other team comes close to LAFC if they had to travel to LAFC for the MLS Cup final, except for the Union. Like, I thought this was the only team capable because they played defense. And you saw it. They played well defensively, and they still gave up 3 goals. Like, I thought they played
That's the
pretty
scary
well.
thing.
And I thought...
They're so known for their defense, but every game against LAC is a shootout. So It really is just like...
It's clashing styles.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Very different thing. But the Union are able to somehow still keep up with the goal scoring.
Yeah.
Downside, like I said last week, you brought in Hua for this goal scoring, which he did during the regular season. Playoffs, not so much. Kind of went missing the last 2 games. Luckily, they didn't need him in game 1 with the Eastern Conference Final, I mean. But this game, I didn't even know he was on the pitch at times.
Yeah.
And Rich was like, we got to get Corey Burke on, and I agreed. Reversal from last week. But I said, we got to get Corey Burke on. And Rich said, do you take off Martinez? Because he didn't like the way he was playing either. And I said, you can't. You just can't. You're going to have to put in a midfielder there. So I said, it's going to be Ua that comes out. And he was like, Rich was like flabbergasted. He was like, no, it can't be him because, of course, this expectation of where you brought in the striker. You need the goal, right? You don't want to take out a striker. But I was like, I don't even know he's playing. I can't even tell you where he is on the field. I mean, also we're looking at a screen far away, but I'm also like, I can't even tell you what he's doing. So once Corey came in, I think they did look a little better. And then he had to leave injured. It was really confusing in Subaru Park on what was going on with the red card. I'm sure it was confusing on TV too, but we didn't even know that Crepeau was that injured.
Mm-hmm.
He was down for a while, which we thought, but we couldn't. They never showed a replay of it, but we also couldn't hear the announcers that much to know that he broke his leg.
Yeah.
So we're kind of standing there like red, like it should be a red. Why aren't they even VARing it? Like we're just standing here. And then they did make the change, thankfully. But that tackle changed the game as well because the Union weren't able to use another sub after they had to switch in somebody for Corey because that was their last window of making a sub. So even when they had the lead, they couldn't sub in a defensive player, which kind of hurt them against, with Bale scoring the equalizer. So that whole tackle really just kind of sucked. Overall, but he had surgery. He's feeling better. Crepeau.
Yeah, God, it was. You can see it. They showed one replay, but it was like you had to go back yourself because and it's good that they've done this. They've stopped showing those kind of injuries. They're like, we're not showing this
unless if it was Tua, they would keep replaying.
Right, they'd be like, look, he died. He's dying on the field. Look at him. He's dying. His brain's oozing out of his face.
Because that's what my wife is sitting there next to me. She's like, why aren't they replaying it? I'm like, because he got really badly injured, according to Twitter. Yeah. She's like, it doesn't stop them any other time. And I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, especially football, they're like, man, did you see how it broke? That was gross.
Yeah, he got his bell rung. Let's try that again.
But you can see but I think you're right. I think it was it's just a weird moment because Burke is hurt. Crepeau's hurt. There's a really long lull in the game, which is always going to impact the game. I thought the Union had the upper hand at that point. I thought the Union started to look way more like we're just going to dominate from here on out. But then it was like, there goes one way or the other on these kind of things. It usually crushes a team when they see an injury like that, or it builds a team up. And I think the LAFC took off and ran with it, and only because their backup keeper comes in and just shuts down the Union as far as the penalties are concerned. But I think you're right. I think is the guy that you make that big signing. But Pep does the same thing with City. When I watch them, if Haaland's not performing, then in comes Julian Alvarez. Doesn't matter how much money the guy's getting paid. If it's not his game, it's not his game.
Right.
And clearly Jim Curtin saw what we saw. I think, Jordan, you and I, that you got to get Burke on, and Gura's really the only replacement that made sense at that point. So I think it was a great call. Like, I think honestly, I'd have gone earlier, maybe. Like, I don't know.
That's what I was thinking.
I think now that you say that, Jordan, I was sitting back going, I don't remember him being mentioned at all, like at all in the game. And
Me neither.
like,
I mean,
I don't remember him being out there.
I don't remember anything he did.
Yeah, ever like touch the ball.
No.
I don't know how many touches. It would be interesting to see how many touches he had, but like, yeah, I don't remember at all, like what he did.
And part of that was that, again, the midfield wasn't even playing well.
That's true.
There was times where they were just trying to like quickly move the ball and would just pass it short or just like cross it to nobody, and then LAFC regain it, and it's this churn that would happen. I think there was a time where Ua did have a ball and took too many touches in the box and it got knocked away. But, you know, he'll be back. Carranza will be back. Gazdag will be back. So, like, the main core of this team, Bedoya's going to be back. Blake's going to be back. I would say probably Glesnes and Elliott are going to be back. The main core of this team is going to remain, and I believe in Ernst Tanner to be able to find those other pieces, the Kai Wagners, the the Bizo, that'll be able to supplement those. We're going to need a backup for Gazdag now that Paxton's leaving. So it's that kind of stuff that's going to need to be sussed out, whether it's from the youth team or getting them from like the third division of Germany, like Tanner's one to do. And the thing is, the squad is going to need some real depth. And, you know, it's good for a 90-minute game, but when you have to go that 120, and you're, like I said, you're putting Donovan in and you're bringing Paxton in, and you're bringing in the kids, which I was like, that's another reason why I said if we go to penalties, if we have to revert to like putting it on the shoulder of these kids while they have like Bale, Vela, you know, Vela was out at the time, but like Bale and like I can't even think about Arango and like all their players that they have that can go step up and take a penalty, all the ones that did and scored. You're like, ooh, let's send up the 16-year-old and see if he can do it. Like, that's kind of rough. But yeah, overall, look, I wouldn't. The only thing I would trade this for is a win, obviously. But I would much rather get to the final than get to just the Eastern Conference final again. And I'm partially to blame. And I said this on this Twitter Spaces. I said if we lose, it's kind of my fault, because when we were losing to NYCFC, I said, please God, just win this game. I don't care if you lose the final. And that was my fault. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. And I even prayed again at the game, at the cup final. And I said, God, I will never ask for anything more if you have them win this. And my wife immediately called BS on that as she heard me say it. But I said, I won't ask for anything until the World Cup starts.
Right. This is only like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I was like 3 weeks.
Like...
So he either doesn't exist or he doesn't care about the union. But anyway.
Or he's an LAFC fan and he does exist.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
but I mean, look, stats wise, Union had XG of 1.6 to LAFC's 0.9. The percentage of possession was 53 to the Union to 47 to LAFC. It's usually swapped when the Union play LAFC. Usually LAFC will take it and the Union will try to go. Passing accuracy was really close, 70% to 69% for the Union, 69. Shots on target. Union only had 18% of the shots on target, 3 out of 17, while they had 8 out of 16 on LAFC. They had 0 saves, LAFC did, but 62%. 5 out of the 8 shots on target were saves for the Union. Andre Blake. Anything we missed about talking about this one?
I mean, Steve
Cherundolo, my notes here.
First year, Steve Cherundolo, Supporter Shield and MLS Cup final winner.
Yeah, bastard.
You're welcome.
No,
Wow,
I mean,
I didn't know
he's
that's
one.
that was
He was
still
one. No, I'm
divisive.
talking about Trunolo. I mean, he was one of my
Okay.
favorite players growing up, and he coached for Hanover, and he just rips my heart out this past weekend. But good for Steve Trundolo. All the people that doubted that would be a good signing when I said it was going to be, as if I'm some sort of genius. I don't know, but they got it done. He got him farther than Bradley could, and he actually crossed the line with it. Now, of course, he got a little bit more help when they're like, "Yeah, we'll sign Bale for you, and we'll sign Chiellini for you."
Mm.
And I don't really know why they kept trying to move Arango at all, because he ended up being a big boost to their team. But
Yeah.
I'm assuming he's going to be gone. And it sounds like Cifuentes is going to be gone from some reports that happened too. So they're going to be in a little bit of a rebuild. But for them, I'm assuming they're setting sights on Champions League next. They got to a final before. They were almost the first MLS team to win it. And now they're going forward with that. And like I was saying before, I got off track. I don't even know where I went wrong here, but the Union needing depth, they're going to have Champions League, Leagues Cup, Open Cup, MLS. And the same thing with LAFC here. They're going to have Leagues Cup, Open Cup, and Champions League. And the Champions League draw is happening in 14 minutes, by the way. So we'll see where those teams shake out soon. I don't know if we'll still be on during that time, but that is something that we'll be able to look at. But yeah, they're going to be able to afford more depth anyway than somebody like the Union. And that's kind of like where you kind of get into this weird situation MLS is in. And MLS is going to get a little bit of, I would assume, an increase in salary and stuff going into next season with the Apple deal and all that kind of stuff. But, Ernst Tanner got in trouble earlier this season when he called out LAFC getting Gareth Bale and thinking there was something wrong with that. And, because Bale's not a DP. And it's that kind of things that, even if it's legal and what they're doing, which it probably is, right, is that when you come to the U.S., right, there's going to be certain markets that just have an upper hand. And that's going to be your LAs, your Miamis, your New Yorks, where the players from Europe want to go there to live in the beautiful sun and the big city type of market that those are in, right? So that is where you're going to run into where, like, Miami was able to, well, we found out they were kind of doing it incorrectly, right? But they were able to allure these stars over there and pay them little amounts and then kind of pay them behind the scenes or whatever they were doing. And, it's because they were Miami. And LA is able to say to Gareth Bale, hey, you want to get fit for the World Cup? Come live in LA. We have beautiful golf courses. We have beautiful weather the whole season. Come to LA, and we can only pay you this much this year, but next year you can be making this much. And he's able to take that cut because he is already rich and he wants to live somewhere nice. He's like, that sounds great, man. And it's those type of things where, like, teams like Philly, Cincinnati, Minnesota are not going to be able to do that because they're going to be, who wants to go to those cities, right? Like, I mean, at least Philly's still on the Eastern Seaboard, right? But if you're looking at teams that are like St. Louis, Charlotte, Minnesota, where people are like overseas don't even know where they are, right? Like that's where they get into more of a problem of how do we convince these people to come here for little money and then we can pay them better next year. So that's just something that, and why I say LA should have won is because they have that advantage of being able to recruit players of, hey, it's going to be beautiful here. Miami, same thing. There's going to be, now it didn't work for Miami. We'll see if it does, if they get messy, but where they're able to kind of flaunt that, like, here's this nice weather and we can only pay you this much right now, but next year we can pay you a lot more. And players are able to do that. And that's going to be what, Chris Albright is going to have to do at Cincy, is be creative and find those nuggets like Ernst Tanner currently is doing. And I think what you're going to see is at some point, I don't know how long this can last, right? Like if we keep increasing the salary cap, but the Union and like Cincinnati keep having to do like smaller deals. Like, how much will the parity continue to last? That's going to be a question as we continue going into it. But I think what you might see is, and what Cincy started to do when they hired Chris Albright, is trying to replicate that Union model. And I think more teams are going to try that because it got them a minute and a half away from an MLS Cup against the big spenders. So I think you're going to see the rich teams are going to be able to go out like LAFC will, and you're going to have the not rich teams that are going to go out there and do what the Union did. And we're going to see this change over time, I think. But the thing is, and this is where it can fall back on the Union as well, is that they have to nail the signings. We saw this with Atlanta when they were making big signings from South America. They hit on Almiron, and then they busted on every single other one. That is going to be, at least then you're not spending big money for the Union. Like, they're not paying $15 million for Miguel Almiron or Sosa or whatever down in Atlanta. They're not doing that up in Philly. They're spending $300K. And if that busts, they're able to say, you know what, let's spend another $300K and get somebody else in here. But it'll be interesting to see how this evolves and what teams are going to latch on to what models. Because those are the two most successful models. Whatever some of these other teams are doing are not working. Whatever DC United's doing right now is not working. And they had to fire their GM, and Wayne Rooney's taking over, and they're going to try something else. But that'll be interesting to just see how this shapes up here, because you know what it kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of baseball, like soccer usually does, where you have your Moneyball teams like Oakland or the Orioles, and then you have your big spenders like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Mets, and having to see what teams are emulating what models. Like Orioles are basing themselves off the Houston model, which has been successful. They just won a second world championship. While the Yankee model and the Dodger model has not been successful. The Dodgers won one World Series, 2020. Yankees haven't been back since 2009, right? And the Dodgers haven't won before 2020. It was like the 80s, right? So there's this, like, it'll be very interesting because LAFC is probably not going to win next year. They're going to have a whole bunch of competitions they have to focus on, and you just haven't had back-to-back MLS winners in a long time. So this will be where it's very interesting to see how do they, what teams are going to use what structures, because I think these are the two most successful structures.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you've got game plans in place and from what I understand, and I think Tannenwald, is that how you say his name? Is that the affiliate?
Jonathan Tannenwald, yeah.
Tannenwald, okay.
The Kennenbaum,
yeah,
kind of thing.
He alluded to the fact that the Union, and I think he was tweeting at like a newer Union fan that said, "Oh man, we're in a lot of trouble because Paxton's leaving, and all these guys are, towards the end of their time with the Union, so they're going to sell them off." And he said, "Well, you wouldn't think that way if you've seen what I've seen in the youth academy for the Union. That these guys like McGlenn, like Paxton, like these are just the start of the iceberg. Where the peak, they're still kids in their academy that they're." Touting as very highly rated prospects. So I think with the Union and Cincinnati, I think Cincinnati gets there. Cincinnati just started. But I think both of them build through youth, build through scouting. Like they're huge in scouting. The Union and Cincinnati, they're known for their scouting. They go to South America. They do their work there. They go to places like Brazil, Argentina. They might go to places in Europe starting soon. I know the Union are more into that market than Cincinnati, I think, are. And that's where Ura came from. And Gazdag, like that's a bunch of scouting that the Union are doing over there. And those aren't younger guys, but they're guys that are just undiscovered right now. And I think that's what you got to do, right? I mean, that's the beauty about soccer compared to any other sport is
it's like the
how
Flock.
massive. Yes.
They brought Flock over young.
Right.
He's probably going to get sold either this year or next year. And he's using that as a part of, let me get seen because I wasn't getting seen.
Yep.
And then I can get bounced up higher or get a starting job somewhere else.
Yeah. But it's a good way to like build your team, and I think that the Union and Cincinnati are doing it correct. I wish Orlando would do the same thing, but we seem to be in this sense of like, let's go after the sparkly pieces. I
Yeah,
think Facundo Torres has been the only one they've hit on. So
what is their what's their youth setup like at Orlando? I don't ever hear of
there's
youth
not
coming through.
there's not. Mikey Holiday, I think, was the only one that was worth a damn, and he was a right back. He's still there, but he doesn't play because Ruan is probably one of our best defenders, if not our best defenders. So there's not much. And anytime that you ever hear about some of the youth pieces, they go back to said country where they come from because it just doesn't pan out well. So Orlando's a mess, and I think other teams are like them. Like I think Minnesota's built the exact same way. Like I don't think they've got a bunch of youth that are exciting. They're not great. I would say Austin does a really nice job as far as recruiting. I mean, to find Sebastian Giroussi, like this guy could be playing Premier League soccer, but he's over here playing in the U.S. For an Austin team that I think, I mean, man, if you look at it, to be able to do what they did with Facundo Torres or Facundes, I think that Facundo Torres, that's a new name. That's Fernando Torres' brother. No, but that was Facundo Torres and all of them mixed up together. But like Cecilio Dominguez when he, was playing and playing well. But I don't know. Like I think there's a lot of teams that are just kind of sputtering. Red Bull, like what the hell's wrong with them? Like they've got a network of teams and they can't do anything with the New York-based team. Their other teams are fantastic. They're Champion League teams. So like the fact that Red Bulls struggle here so much is concerning. Remember when Caden Clark was the talk of the town? Hell, you never hear anything about Caden Clark anymore.
He's going back over, but yeah, he didn't play much, I don't think.
You don't hear anything about him. So
what was his
I don't think he spent much time doing anything. So I don't know. Red Bull are in a mess. Like I don't know what their situation is, but they're that's the tough part. Like where these big teams, like a Miami, I think Miami could spend a ton of money. They just don't do it correctly.
Yeah, well, they just signed. Phil Neville has got a contract extension there. So, okay, he played 16 games, but he only started 3.
Okay,
Caden Clark, and he had 1 goal, 2 assists. So he didn't really get a lot. He only had 475 minutes. His whole reason of getting sent back here was for him to play and get ready for going over there. I don't get that. Whatever. Oh well. But yeah, so I think we're wrapping up here. I'm thinking I might go live here for the draw in a second. But yeah, anything else, Logan, before we get out about MLS Cup? I know we got some moves we'll probably have to talk about later and some stuff afterwards, but it was. How about you? You've only watched like maybe a couple MLS Cups. Was this the best one so far?
Oh gosh, yes. I think, and it's going to be really hard to beat this one.
I know 3-3, the top 2 seeds. Yeah. Like this was,
and incredible. 2 of the best, I think, teams in history. Historically, I think they're 2 of the best teams.
Not by points, but
not
definitely
by points, right?
Like,
but I think talent-wise, LAFC has by far the best talent I think you have possibly ever on paper. The fact that people are going to be able to look back at this, Jordan, and go, oh my God, Gareth Bale came off the bench and scores an equalizer. What? I know when I saw it was
him, I was like, it had to be Bale.
Yeah. On the year he goes in and knocks out the United States of America out of the group.
Better not.
Jordan will have his head. Gareth Bale, watch out. But no, I think, and then historically, I think the Union are one of the best teams ever. So, it's too bad. Like I really do wish there was a more neutral way to have these MLS Cup finals, just because it just feels like. I mean, I don't know. New York City goes into probably the hardest place to play in all of MLS and beats a Portland Timbers team. So I don't know. I guess anything's possible, but it's the only flaw of the playoff system.
We've done neutral finals and they weren't great. So
there would be no fans. So
I mean, they still had fans show up, but it wasn't like you wouldn't have the atmosphere the way you did in this game. And I think it's okay as a good thing of, you had the best record in the league.
Yeah, you just
And every team knows that going in to the season. So I guess we'll see what they. I'm assuming if this league does really take off in 25 years, you'll have a Super Bowl type event with neutral finals again. But I think as it stands now, where like if you hosted this in Toronto and it's LAFC and Union, it's like, who's gonna go? People in Toronto that want to see LAFC, right? But I mean, what if the final was in Toronto and it's Cincy versus Orlando, which can't happen. Never mind. Cincy versus Minnesota. Is it getting a big turnout? Probably not. Unfortunately. All right. Well, if you want to reach us, and if anybody wants to reach us, we are at Stateside Show on every platform. So, any last words, Logan?
No, just sad that the night drive ended so abruptly.
Can you hear it? I can't hear it.
I can hear it now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I can't hear it. I thought it wasn't working. So
I was like, oh man, it just all of a sudden, it was like you were putting me in the night drive, and all of a sudden it was like the lights came on. Speaking of which, we were at Fantasmic, those that are Disney fans, and the lights came on. That's kind of what this felt like, Jordan. It kind of felt like you were just ending the show early because of weather or something stupid.
I had a long night drive on Saturday.
But good season, man. It was a lot of fun talking about this year. Second year in the books already, Jordan, and we have a World Cup coming up.
We have a World Cup coming up, and then we have year 3 with the new Apple TV deal.
Right.
Which we'll have a lot to sink our teeth into. Another new team. This is Logan's like second, 3 straight year, third straight year with the new team as he follows the league. That's great. But yeah, so at Stateside Show, if you want to reach us, I'm probably going to hop off here and go live for Champions League, and you'll have that as a separate episode in the feed. But hope everyone had a great MLS season. We'll catch you next time when we start previewing our 2022 World Cup.